You can be the most prepared person for a public presentation and still watch your audience check out before you've made your point.
Sometimes we're in that boardroom or sometimes we're on that conference stage and we share too much details, and the details are not what they are looking for. And you can see people are tuning out, people are getting confused.
It usually isn't that you said too little. It's that you told them what you know instead of showing them how you think.
The senior upper echelons in a company, they're not interested in hearing about tactics. They're interested in strategic direction.
None of this comes down to sounding more polished. It's 5 tips for getting senior leaders to trust how you think, not just what you know.
Public speaking tip number 1 is to understand your role as a public speaker. No matter what your communication piece is, it could be a conference presentation, it could be a debate in the boardroom, it could be a conversation you're having with a potential collaborator. Those are what I call your communication pieces. As an executive, there's going to be many different types of communication pieces that you're involved in and that you're expected to lead. So this tip is to understand your role as a public speaker in that context, in that specific context that is in question. So when it comes to understanding your role, the key is to know what is the real problem that you're trying to solve for that organization in which you're involved in. What's the key problem? And when you uncover that key problem, this is going to help guide you. Use that to guide you and inform you on what the purpose of your presentation is, or the purpose of your conversation, that communication piece. It's going to inform the purpose of it. And there's where now, when you're clear on the purpose of that communication piece, it's going to inform you what to include and what not to include. Wouldn't you agree that as an executive, sometimes we're in that boardroom or sometimes we're on that conference stage and we share too much details, and the details are not what they are looking for. And you can see people are tuning out, people are getting confused. That raises argumentation down a very narrow focus, and that's not the effect you want to have. So it's not necessarily sharing more details or including all the details of what you know. It's being targeted at what you present and what you do include into the conversation. And you won't know how to do that until you understand the purpose of it. And you won't know how to uncover the purpose of it unless you know your role as a presenter or as a communicator in that moment. So that's tip number 1, is to understand what is your specific role within that context. Public speaking tip number 2 is to understand your audience as peers. And this is really important because I work with a lot of executives. And one of the key challenges that I hear my executive clients share with me is that there is a little bit of intimidation when it comes to speaking with their higher ups. And when we feel intimidated by somebody, or sometimes there's a little bit of intimidation when we are working with stakeholders or potential investors or potential collaborators. And this is the key. This is the key. When we feel that we are in the room or potentially examining our relationship with the individual that we feel a little bit intimidated by, the relationship in that moment is not equitable. It's not equitable. And when a relationship is not equitable, it's very difficult to communicate, especially if you feel that they have more power than you, or they have more prestige or more success, or they have more decision-making authority, and so on. The list can continue and so on. So when you understand your audience as peers, the key word is peers. Now you are creating equitable relationships. And so the moment you can create equitable relationships, that means you know that you're not giving away for everything for nothing in return. And so does your audience. So do the people that you're collaborating with or meeting with, because everybody has an internal thermostat. Nobody, yourself included, nobody wants to give away everything for not enough in return or nothing in return. And the same thing is true for your audience that you're speaking with. So when you're creating equitable relationships, that means the parties, the individuals involved, including yourself in that relationship or in that dynamic relationship, everybody feels that it is equitable. Everybody feels that there is equality between the partners or between the relationships. So the key is that when you're creating equitable relationships, the moment you can achieve that equity, now in your public speaking opportunities, in those communication pieces, this is where you are going to create the right message for your audience. In that moment, it's difficult to create the right message for your audience without the equity, without the equitable relationships. So the moment you can create that, the moment you can see how to move your relationships so that they are equitable, they are meaningful, and nobody in that relationship is feeling that they're giving away something for not enough in return, then now you can create the right message to audience match. When you understand your audience at those deepest levels as your peers, you're creating the right message to audience match. And it's important because the reason why you are speaking is not for you. The reason why you're speaking is for them. And when you're speaking for them, that's how you get buy-in, when you make it about them. What is the value you're providing for them? And the only opinion that matters is theirs. They need to perceive that what you're saying is valuable, what you're saying is giving value, adding the best value. And when there is that perception of value, that's how you create the right message to audience match. So that is tip number 2, is to understand your audience as peers. Public speaking tip number 3 is to unveil your content as principles. Let's face it, as an executive in your company, the majority of your time you're going to be in communications with senior leaders, senior executives, and so on. And the senior upper echelons in a company, they're not interested in hearing about tactics. They're interested in strategic direction. The strategic direction of the project, the strategic direction of the company, and so on, not the tactics. But if you were to have your communication pieces and you were to talk about the strategies, it's very difficult to get buy-in, and here's why. Because it's very difficult, in fact, it's impossible to understand what are the right strategies, what's the right strategic direction to take in this moment. It's impossible to understand that and to have a clear, rational decision about it if you don't know the principles. Because principles are the guiding light between what is the right strategy. Principles are the truths behind why these strategies work. So if you don't know the principles, if you don't understand the principles, the applications of what are the principles that we are putting into the equation here, then it's really difficult to be able to recommend the correct strategies for that particular context. So if you will, the moment you can learn how do you articulate, unveil your content as principles, now you're going to be unveiling your thought process behind the strategy you recommend. You're going to be able to unveil the true value behind the wisdom of how you chose that strategy. Your wisdom through all your years of knowledge, that's how you unveil it with principles. So if you're listening to this and it makes sense to you, and if you realize for yourself that maybe you found yourself when you're public speaking, you spend a lot of time talking about tactics and strategies, and you realize that's not what's getting buy-in, and it's creating a lot of uncertainty, and it's creating an image that maybe you don't want to be creating, and you want to be able to know how to communicate at a higher level, then I invite you to book a call to work with me. Below this video in the description, the very first link is an application, and this is an application for my executive coaching program. But first, we're going to have a conversation to explore whether or not this is the right fit to invite you into the program. But the moment you're invited into this program, this is where every single week you're going to get training directly from me on how to communicate effectively as an executive, how to create content based on principles, how to be diplomatic in your delivery, and definitely how to be an effective communicator and understand how to create the right content to audience match. So you're going to learn about these skill sets, develop the skill sets that a lot of executives that I see, they underinvest in their communication skills. So this is your opportunity to invest in your communication skills, just like you've invested in your technical skills in the past. So if you're serious about this, if you're serious about developing these types of communication skills and you want to take your career to the next level, then book a call with me and I look forward to working with you on the inside. Public speaking tip number 4, unite your intention with their attention. Let's face it, you have an intention. With all of your communications, there's an intention behind what you do. And chances are your intention is that you want to be that change agent. And that requires you to influence, persuade, activate the people you are speaking with, to be diplomatic around the solutions that you present and also the challenges that you see moving ahead. And this is all part and parcel about being that change agent. That's your role as an executive. So when it comes to becoming that change agent, the people that you are talking to, you're competing for their attention. You're competing for their attention when it comes to buying into your solutions, when it comes to seeing things from your perspective, when it comes to influencing their beliefs along a certain path. This is what requires you to have that diplomacy. That requires you to be able to exhibit that influence clearly. And one of the key things about competing with their attention is that people will pay attention. Your senior leaders or your collaborators or investors are going to pay attention to the things that are highest in their values. And that's the key about anybody, any individual that you're about to communicate with. The things that they pay attention with the most are the things that align the most with their highest values. So the moment you can link your intention, it could be your intention towards a certain project, a recommendation towards a solution, or a certain strategic direction, whatever it is, the moment you can clearly link that to what their highest values are, now you can have their attention. And the moment you have their attention, this is your opportunity to influence, persuade, activate, and so on. So that is why tip number 4 is to unveil your intention and link it to their attention. Public speaking tip number 5 is to uncover your value. Let's face it, you have a certain intent towards your communication pieces. It could be that you want a buy-in for your recommendation. It could be that you want to share your idea. Whatever it is, there's an intention that you have and there's an offer you're going to give. The offer to go in a different direction, the offer to implement this new idea, or the offer to adopt this unique solution that you are about to present. So then when you combine this step, uncover your value, when you combine it to the previous tip in terms of linking to their attention, in the previous step, that's how you elevate their desire for what you are about to uncover. And now in this tip, this is when you uncover your value. So if you raised their desire in the previous tip, and now you uncover the value, and now in combination, you can activate them. This is truly the foundation of influence.